Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I will of course be discussing the sudden resignation of Zia Yusuf as Reform Party chair. News that will have delighted some of the old guard Reform UK supporters, but these circumstances raises quite a few questions. Was this engineered to force Yusuf out because he has also challenged Farage's ego somehow? You know, like Rupert Lowe did before him. Or has Yusuf genuinely decided that the party has no intention of becoming a serious political project? Either could easily be true. Let's consider what we know and go from there. But first, for daily news and politics, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So I must start off by saying it was a good job I had a headache yesterday and spent the afternoon laid out on the sofa with a pug on my head. This is not a little known Yorkshire medical solution, by the way. It's just how things ended up. But I had intended to do a third video on the fallout from PMQs, after which Yusuf had described Reform's newest MP as being a bit silly. Just as well I didn't, because I'd have had to junk that video when, because Yusuf resigned. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So what happened? So let's begin with the shenanigans this week, even though I think last week may be relevant as well. So Deputy Leader Richard Tice suggests that the new Reform UK, Sarah Poshin, has a Pokin? I don't know how to pronounce her name. But he was suggesting she has a good question for PMQs. So the question is not on Pochin's initiative alone. Or Pochin. Shall I just say Sarah? Sarah. Tice at least was in on it, which means Farage probably was as well. She suggests that the government tell people what they can and can't wear. Specifically, she urges the government to ban the burqa, right? So Yusuf responds that it was a silly question. Why, he asked, would we ask the government to do something we're not proposing to do ourselves? However, Tice and Farage supported the idea. A day later, Yusuf had resigned from the party, saying he does not think helping Reform UK get elected is a good use of his time. Now, there are lots of things he could have meant by that, but in some form or other, he must either think the project cannot succeed with childish antics like this, or he believes it can succeed, but as Elon Musk is sort of discovering, you don't necessarily get what you think you'll get by the project succeeding. So I can think of three basic possibilities which seem credible to me. The first, we can take him at his face value. He doesn't think the party wants to be serious, so he thinks his efforts will end up being wasted as the public won't vote for clowns who keep pursuing pointless culture wars instead of serious policy. Second, that he was expecting some commercial benefits from a Reform UK government, just as Musk was back in MAGA. Maybe he feels that is no longer likely to work out. Third, that he believes Reform UK can win power, but that doing so may not provide the best outcome for a Muslim like Yusuf if this is how they're going to behave. Perhaps he is the frog who saw the scorpion for what it was before it's too late. So which do I think's more likely? Well, anything I say will of course be speculation because there are a lot of hints forthcoming. But I wonder if this might not have started last week. Nigel Farage announces hundreds of billions of pounds worth of completely unfunded tax cuts and spending increases. More of the same Liz Truss nonsense that they pulled at the last general election. Now, after last year's general election, Zia Yusuf, just been installed as the new chair of the party, he did say in an interview that Reform UK's election spending plans weren't serious, but that they would be credible come the next election. So right from the start, he was talking about making the party professional, a proper organisation. We're going to have fully costed plans, all the rest of it, right? Now, obviously, anyone connected to the party is going to insist that, of course, their spending plans will be real at the next election, but maybe Yusuf meant it. Maybe he wanted the party to be a serious, credible party, which could become a serious, credible government. Maybe Farage's presentation last week was not at all what he wanted to see. And perhaps this generated a little bit of friction with Farage, who has a long history of never feeling the need to either deliver when he wins office or even be consistent with his policies from the outside. You know, perhaps there was a fundamental disagreement on direction, which Yusuf pushed back on, which ended up going the same way as when Rupert Lowe tried the same thing, even if this split is on the surface amicable. The burqa question was clearly a flashpoint, but was it really the root cause? Was that question either deliberately engineered, because Farage says, right, it's time for Zia to go now. Sarah, would you like to ask this question? That'll rile him up. Or was it, from Yusuf's point of view, just the final straw? Yusuf was constantly at odds with many of the more vocal reform activists who fundamentally can't get on with the idea of someone who is both non-white and a Muslim having a senior role in their party. You know, whenever the party did anything they didn't like, such as, attack Tommy Robinson or his supporters or Rupert Lowe, even though these things came from Nigel Farage and Richard Tice, Yusuf was the one blamed for them. He was the serpent in the Garden of Eden as far as they were concerned. And even taking his ethnicity and religion out of the equation, many of the grassroots objected to his professionalisation of the party. You see this in all parties, by the way. We've seen it in Labour. So he became the lightning rod for dissatisfaction for those moves as well. But perhaps he kept on with the project because he believed that the people running the show, most especially Farage himself, of course, had their eyes on the prize. Well, clearly no longer. Or the prize is not what Yusuf thought it was. Farage, of course, has a history of bust-ups with close colleagues, going right back to his UKIP days. As I discussed recently, he's a control freak. He expects to be the captain of the ship whose orders are obeyed immediately and without question. He's not into discussions or committees. There is the way he wishes to proceed, and that is all there is to it. In fact, the bust-up with Rupert Lowe was not even their first. They came to blows years ago and then made up later. But the big question is, what happens to Reform UK now? Although supporters may credit Farage as single-handedly turning the party into the behemoth it has become, it's not actually true. They grew from obscurity in the polls to double digits ahead of the Green Party and even the Lib Dems, whilst Richard Tice was leading the party. And Farage was mouthing off on GB News. Now, they were, of course, boosted when Farage came back for the election. Sure, nobody doubts that he added extra votes. But that had nothing to do with his organisation of the party, because he didn't have time to organise anything. He just took over the media show, which is what he's good at. Similar to the boost they've enjoyed since the election, that'll be down to multiple factors, and Nigel Farage will be one of them. But Yusuf's organisation is clearly one of them as well. So the question is this: can Reform UK find someone to replace him who has the same approach to organisation? And if not, do the party have enough momentum now to manage without him? Because Farage, even if he could be bothered to deal with the day-to-day admin of the party, he's too busy juggling his 10 jobs. He's happy enough to do the upfront presentation work or the media work, you know, the front and centre in front of the camera. But what about the nitty-gritty? I don't think so. I don't think he's even got the time to do that. And next year's a big year. There's more local elections, but there's also parliamentary elections in both Scotland and Wales. Next year is their big test before it's possible that the public start noticing improvements from Labour's legislation, which is still, remember, passing through Parliament. It's not in law yet. You know, can they carry themselves without Yusuf? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you later.